You think something is over. Snyder Cut's coming, whether you like it or not. We're only, a matter of days from its release at this point, and yet it boils up again about what a terrible guy Zack Snyder is and all this sort of thing. I've just got a brief little synopsis of all of this, courtesy of Cosmic Book News, where he deals with the Justice League haters. Now, Justice League haters encompasses the whole Snyder Cut ordeal, where people kept saying it doesn't exist, which was immediately very stupid on its face. Of course, there was a cut that existed. I mean, just the timeline alone of when this man had to leave the project because of the tragedy he suffered, and you're looking at a matter of months at that point till the release date. So a whole lot had been done under him. And so, he leaves, and then Joss Whedon comes in, and then Warner lies about what the situation is, which is one of the bigger problems here. They had already been, compromising the guy, and Zack Snyder, you hear about the 214 cut, which at this point I guess we'll never see, but that was Zack Snyder trying to compromise with their new demands to change what he was trying to do with this Justice League film, and make it fit the way they wanted after they panicked. And even that was getting close to what I say is the ultimate lesson here, is to avoid 11th hour changes. But I fear that has not been learned as we go forward with other projects and whatnot. But nevertheless, that's the big problem that they did just in the means of producing a film. So by the time they decided to move on and change it altogether from Zack Snyder's version, it was too late, unless you canceled the release date and would have released it later, which they weren't willing to do. So there you were. It was Zack's version or what you got, this Frankenstein slapjob thing, which, after watching it, I didn't hate it as much as other films that pissed me off, the likes of Last Jedi and stuff like that. It wasn't in that category, but it was a sloppy film that didn't fit with two films that had already established the world and all that of the DCEU, if you will. And so it was too much of a jarring jump. But ultimately, they lied. They presented this, that Zack Snyder himself, asked Joss Whedon to come in and finish his film for him, because he's not up to it anymore because of what he suffered and all that. Well, that's not what happened. And had they done something like that, where somebody, Joss Whedon or whoever, came in and just went by his notes and put together, and that would have been the 214, I imagine, film, things would have been a lot better, at least as far as the relationships go on that. And I don't know, we probably wouldn't even be talking about any kind of Snyder cut. I think all along he probably thought there could have been a director's cut release like there were for previous films he did, most notably Batman vs. Superman and stuff like that. And that's a reasonable assumption. And I think that cut, an ultimate cut, if you will, or director's cut, however, would have fit more in with his 214 and would have been more recognizable of the two. And again, you would have come to this conclusion, because I agree with this, that Batman vs. Superman is a better film in his full cut that's released on Blu-ray. I still see it having flaws, but it's much better. The story works much better and flows better within that cut than it does in the theatrical. The theatrical version, after seeing the ultimate cut, is pretty much unwatchable. His full cut is better. So he must have at some point thought this could be the same for this one. Hence all the 5 hours of principal photography to choose from, and so now his full vision will be this 4-hour film for HBO Max. So something along those lines must have been what he thought could have been. I don't know, and I haven't seen all the interviews he's done since trying to explain what he can explain. There's still NDAs and whatnot, and you're dealing with studios, and there's people obviously upset that this embarrasses them because they were unwise in this. Yet Zack Snyder saying anything or not saying anything is not going to change that. This is naked for everyone to see. This was a stupid decision at that hour to do that, unless, like I said, they canceled the release date and decided we're going to go in a different direction. We'll scrap this and we'll reorganize the Justice League for the following year or something like that. I still don't think that would have worked all that well, but they wanted to make it into a Marvel movie. They were upset they couldn't get that Marvel money and all of that. So then after that, there was this people. It doesn't exist. That was a stupid statement onto itself. The other narrative comes in that Snyder's version and Joss Whedon's version were pretty much the same film. That there might have been a few extras here in Snyder's, but ultimately it's the same thing. Some of the elements that Snyder talks about is that, some of the plot points would be the same, but other than that, no, it's very, very different. And that most of the theatrical release was Snyder's work, we now know that's not true either. So everything that was put up as the explanation to justify not wanting this, if you just wanted to say you didn't like Snyder's version, that's an honest take on your own opinion, a reaction to his work, and that you don't really think this film will be any better. You may be right. We don't know, haven't seen it yet, and all of that. But that's a very different take than this, vitriol reaction to the man, and the idea that he's a liar and all this sort of stuff. The release of Snyder Cut was a fan movement. People wanted to see it. Just out of the curiosity at the beginning, I want to see this. And so, this got Snyder's interest. Of course, it's his work. He didn't get to finish it. It's got to gnaw at him in that aspect, that point of it. He is aware of this, so he joins in. And yes, he shows them, and he's responding to people that are his fans and his customers, if you will. He's in the business of producing films that they enjoy, and he wants to answer that, and that's all it is. There's nothing wrong with that. And that he would post on Vero the images and stuff like that, little teases. Well, it was going to be this, we were going to do that, and then there was, other people coming in who worked on it, releasing the concept art and all that type of stuff. Yes, it garnered the interest, and this happens a lot. There was supposed to be a totally different film for the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and people saw that concept art and all that, and oh, this looks a lot better. And that's the case all the time. In a lot of ways, certainly Snyder Cut and the whole release to Snyder Cut thing is unique unto itself in a lot of ways, but in other ways it isn't. There's alternate versions of what could have been and stuff like that from all kinds of films. In this case, there's a film he shot, and it needed some visual effects and stuff to finish it up, and that's about it. And considering movie budgets, the amount of money they spent for him to retool it and all this sort of stuff is not much compared to the overall expenditure. And they spent a lot of money on this unnecessarily when they pretty much already had a Justice League film that Snyder had provided. And just look, you go for broke and hope for the best. I understood they were panicky about it, but I just don't think it would have been as big a bomb as it could have been. Now, as it is, it's become this sort of legendary film, so it's got a lot of hype going for it, and it's in a different venue with a streaming service, so we'll see how it performs in that aspect. But I think it'll do well. Whether it meets the needs for HBO Max, that's another thing. But nevertheless, it's got quite a boost behind it. So people attacking this man, and now they're treating him like he's supposed to be all right. That's I think, he did. He publicly endorsed Biden. So, what is he supposed to do? I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's the Twitterverse. That's what they do. And when it comes to Twitterverse, and that's the ally you're looking for, boy, are you scraping the bottom of the barrel, because Twitterverse only enjoys punishing people, and they don't care what they do, or who they are, or what their story is. They do this all the time. So here he's got this little sample here. He was talking to Cinema Blend, and he calls out to the people who were attacking him and the fandom for this. So he's speaks up for them. And so anyway, he goes, I just think that's sour grapes. He's right. There's really no other way to say it. We know the people who were the architects of that narrative, and it's pretty obvious what their agenda is. Those are people that I've been held back from confronting by wiser people in the room, because I'd love to get at some of these characters. Some direct conversation would be nice. Just to say, one, you don't know shit about what you're talking about. And that's true. You would have not just Zack Snyder, but people like Jay Oliva and stuff, like people who actually worked on the film and would have direct knowledge of it. And they, no, you don't know what you're talking. Look, come on. You weren't there. So, but, so it says, and we can break down everything they've ever said. I can make a list. There's a few of these guys where I could just get a list of everything that they've ever said that they thought was right, and I could tell them every single thing they've said is wrong. And so, in what world do you have any credibility anywhere to anyone? Yeah, there's a lot of it shot, and some people, when it was announced, or up to the very last minute, there's nothing going. And there was even a story that whatever talks had happened failed, and Zack Snyder was banned from Warner Brothers or something like that. And then, within a couple of days, he announced, it's coming to HBO Max, and lost their minds over this. But when you hold to a narrative that you can't really prove, that you just guessed at, and it comes out of this inability to admit you were wrong, and so everything that proves you completely wrong about something you couldn't confirm just reveals the stupidity of what you engaged in, and that's the problem I think a lot of these people deal with. I would love the opportunity to just say to the world and to fandom in general who these fakers are and what should be done to them or with them. It's just a bunch of BS. In regards to that toxic fandom, or it's a win for toxic fandom, again, in what world does this toxic fandom raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for suicide prevention? How is that toxic fandom? They've probably achieved more than any other fan base and done more good than any other group. So I don't understand. And good for Zack. Yes, indeed, good for Zack. So, but there's been other examples. I can think of Richard C. Meyer, who I believe addressed this in a recent video, where he did that very thing, when he tried to make an olive branch or what have you. He said, you know what, I'm going to donate, raise money and donate it to a suicide prevention that was targeted for people, gay teenagers and trans teens and stuff like that, where the suicide rates are unfortunately rather high, and said this is a group or community that has outreach for them for needing counseling and help to avoid that. And he raised the funds for them, and people were calling they should return the money because it's dirty money because it's him, and those it's an incredible the amount of hatred for no good reason at all. All the fandom really wanted is, I want to see this film. That's all. That's a crime, and that's the thing. And then at HBO Max, what do they need? They need subscribers. They need customers. What are they telling them they want? Well, I want to see that Snyder cut. So the obvious response, well, let's see if we can get that. Hey, Zack, can you do that? He's yes, I can. And there you go. It's really that simple. All this nonsense because you didn't know what you were talking about. You were exposed that you didn't know what you were talking about, and you should have realized this could happen since you did not know what you were talking about. You weren't there. You weren't the fly on the wall who had the inside scoop on any of this. The idea that there wasn't anything to put out. And all that, even to the point, I think when he was doing his reshoots, I think it's about 4 minutes of extra footage that he shot for this thing, as if that was, you see, there was no cut. He had to shoot the actual cut, in the lockdown scenario and stuff like that. It's desperate and pathetic, but that's the thing. Unless you have the absolute goods and you make an authoritative, substantial statement on something, you shouldn't do it, but that should be common sense and whatnot. But They just didn't have it, and that's the fix they're in. And you know, when you consider the terrible tragedy this man suffered, and you pull this crap with him, because there's no way around it. It's linked to this because this is the time, at the time that this happened to him, and he had to leave the project and all that. It's absolutely shameful, the type of treatment here. You don't want to see Zack Snyder's Justice League. You don't like Zack Snyder's superhero films. Fine. You don't have to see it. He's not taking anything away from you. They've got other projects on the way, depending on how this performs. If it's a hit and very popular, yeah, the order's going to come down. Yeah, we want more of this. And there may actually be a Justice League 2 from this guy. Yeah, I want to see that too, but is it likely? I don't know at this point. We'll see how this performs. But I imagine these same people are going to continue with this, and at this point, at this point already, I think any sides, any so-called critics or what have you, jumping on this, they have no credibility. So their ability to be an objective observer or a critique of a film or what have you is now shattered, because they hold on to a lie and a bitter hatred that they were wrong, and they were exposed as it. And instead of being an adult and accepting that, and you made a mistake and this sort of thing, double down, triple down, quadruple down. And the problem isn't Zack Snyder or his fans. The problem is them. And there's really no escape for them in that until they confront it. So anyway, he recently put this little cool image. There's Ben Affleck and his Batman doing the Nightmare Batman, and that we'll be getting more of that. So that's really cool. And that does look like the hallway that Superman came down in, and he's all dressed up. I don't know. We'll see what that is. I guess there'll be more visions of that era coming to fruition, which Batman is desperately trying to avoid. In this film, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it's a tantalizing tease. And yeah, Zack's really good at that. So if you don't have Vero, get it. You can follow his little great little gifts and treats leading up to the Zack Snyder's Justice League, coming soon to you on HBO Max.
Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.